Can we read it? You guys see that? Want to show that makes the news. Coach Warren. That's why we went inside. Come on in there. That's why we went inside there. Coach won. It's part of his contract.
What's the story behind that? There's got to be a story behind that.
Us going inside. I'm always messing with somebody, so I said I got to mess with Sean today and say, hey, look, the reason we're going inside the bubble is because Sean will go on. He generally wears that lane when he was coaching high school games. Bad weather doesn't, the elements don't make the lane stand up, so we have to go inside. He's all right. We're good. Questions? Well, if you know Kevin, and I know him, that didn't surprise me. He actually called me. Once he got in, we kind of knew he was getting in. We called him, we congratulated him, honestly. And he called me Sunday night. I said, Coach, I might not be able to make it Monday. I said, just take as long as you want. I said, we understand. But Kevin is, he understands the importance. That's the kind of player he was. He knows when it comes to football, team, being where you're supposed to be, he's going to be there. Just that's his DNA. That's how he functions. So it didn't surprise me when he called me and said, "Hey, Coach," I said, "Kevin, good man, don't worry about it." So that's kind of bad. No, I mean, I think he'll be around and he can take as much time as he wants. Really, it's fine. I don't worry about that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. I was generally there every year from Canton when they induct those guys because we have our own booth where we're actually interviewing guys. So it's kind of ironic that this year, not only was Kevin, Tony Gonzalez, I had Tony in Kansas City, and I had John in Tampa. 2 out of the 3 got in, so we were very excited about those games.
So Dylan's to recall, I mean, maybe some people counted him out because we bring in 3 freshman quarterbacks, but it looks like, I know, small sample size and all, that for the first week or so of practice, he's been doing really well.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job. He's familiar with the offense, obviously, and he what I liked about him is that he knew that this was going to happen. We were going to bring some young quarterbacks in. And if you look at him, he changed his whole body. I mean, he lost like 20 pounds or something. He's been in the building. He knows he's got a great opportunity to be the starting quarterback here. He's going to have to compete for it. It's no one's job. It's about competition. And this thing's going to go on until the summer. I mean, we're not going to make a decision after this because we know what's coming. We're going to have 20 more guys that walk in here. A lot of them young players, and they're going to compete for a job. So competition will continue.
Specifically with Dylan, what do you see different from him right now?
Well, I think his confidence in the offense, and he's trying to take some kind of leadership role in the fact that he's the guy that's been around. He's actually played in some games. So now he understands that, look, I've got more experience in the fact that I've been around here, I've been in the program, I've actually played in some games. So use that to your advantage. Now, the guys behind it, there's a reason they're here too, because they understand that whoever wins the job is going to be the starting quarterback, and we're going to let the competition continue to happen every day.
During the spring, I guess, you're not making decisions on who's starting, things like that. You still got fall camp, you still got the summer. What are some of your main goals that you want to accomplish in spring?
Well, the thing we talked about was the mental errors that occur in football games, and we want to cut that. We want to cut that in half. The fundamentals to help you become a better player are critical. There are a lot. We lost some pretty good players. Okay, we lost one of the better receivers in the country. Who's going to step up? We lost our quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12. So we lost some players that have played significantly in this system, especially offensively. Defensively, we've lost a couple players, especially up front on the defensive line. Nothing we can do about that right now. We'll have 4 more defensive linemen coming in here, so troops are coming. We'll be fine. So, you know, the back end of our defense, it's going to change when these 4 guys appear in the back end that are pretty good players. The linebacker core, that's going to change a little bit. We're going to have some more guys in there. So I just think for guys right now, it's about competing, it's about continuing to get better, because we got to get better. I mean, that's part of it. We can't stay the same. And I challenge them all the time about every day is a day that you can get better if you choose to. Don't come in here and leave this building not getting better, because if you do that, we're not helping your team.
Talk about what Kyle Williams brings, not just on the field, but in the locker room, and a guy that wants to be a surgeon, a guy that he played quarterback and very intelligent guy.
Well, he's the guy when we decided to go early in spring. I knew he would not be available for some practices. That was the first thing he was nervous about. I said, Kyle, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, you're a guy we trust. You've earned that in my eyes. You've earned that where school is more important than you coming out here in spring practice. I mean, that's kind of where he's at. But even today, he was out there and we had classes and he came out and caught the ball. So he is a guy that you can depend on. He's going to do the right thing. I mean, if you're a quarterback, you want a guy like that on offense. You want a Kyle Williams, you want an Eno Benjamin that have played in a lot of games, and when it gets sticky in the huddle, they're the guys you can look at and kind of say, we're going to be all right, everything's going to be okay.
I think about the grad transfer market, if you want to pick that rate, what holes do you think that you most need to fill?
Yeah, the offensive line. We still have to get that. I mean, we got a good group. But generally, the plan, I think, for all teams, now you get like there's always exceptions to the rules when it comes to these guys. But generally, you want to bring them in. They're not fully developed yet, most of them. Now, there's always this there's always this core of like 5-6% of them that are really good. I had a couple of guys like that in the Under Armour game where they were left tackles in the Under Armour game, and they were going to Alabama, and I'm going, this dude's going to start as a freshman. And he did, and he ended up being a freshman, and all that stuff. But most of them, it takes you a year to 2 to develop. They got to get stronger. We don't have the luxury of that, of guys in the lower classes who are starting to build that. So we have to go out and get some grad transfers because guys that had experience, that have played. So that's important for us now. Hopefully after this year, we'll build a surplus of young guys that can be in the program for 2 years, like Frias is the guy, right? Those young guys. It takes those guys 2 years, most of them. And so that's what we're always looking for.
What do you think of the transfer portal that should be?
Frigs. Yeah, it's Frigs. It's Frigs in college football. And I think the danger of it is this, a couple things for me. One is that, look, and I'm a guy that left. I get it, I left. I left Cal twice. Okay? But it was a personality clash. It was never about the system, it was just a personality clash with the coach, and I was the starter. Okay, so I think it gives them a way out when it's hard. Okay, I also believe that, hey, there's some validity to it. Sometimes you go to a place and maybe the coach leaves or the system changes and you don't want to be involved in that. But more than anything else, a lot of them kind of like the world that these young people live in this world of technology, video, and learning off video. They're learners and they're visual learners. There's this reset button. So now they get to reset. If it's uncomfortable, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look like, or the coach is kind of, I always say when the coach is on you, that's a good thing. It means he cares. If they don't talk to you, that's not good. A lot of them can't take that. And they look at the odds, they look at the line they're in, they look at the competition ahead of them. I'm going in the portal. You got to make sure guys going in the portal, why is he leaving? So if you're the guy looking at guys in the portal, there's a reason they left. I always say this. Wherever he came from, there's good coaches there. So let's don't say the coaches. Well, why did he leave? So you got to do your due diligence and research guys. I mean, any guy we bring in here, portal guy or graduate transfer, we are going to do our research to find out what happened, okay? And if you don't do that, shame on you. So I just think it works both ways.
Gave Curtis Hodges some time off last year to get his academics.
Yes.
Other things like that. Is that going to pay off for you now that you moved to the tight end?
I hope so. I mean, yeah, he was excited about moving there when I talked to him about it. He's got the frame, he's got the size he can put on it. And you look at the guys now, athletic tight ends are like, wow, they're big time. And they're hard to cover inside the middle of your defense because they're so athletic. They got a bad matchup. I mean, think about the tight end we're bringing in. There's a reason the guy's 6'5", he's 245. I saw him when we were on the road down in Texas. He comes in here, you're like, whoop. And so I just think the more athletic you are inside with wide receivers, tight ends, you get the matchup you want. And I think he's enjoying it. You know, he's got a role now. He's a long strider a little bit. That doesn't bode well for you to play outside. More inside because you're going to get more of a free release. He doesn't always have to be connected to the formation. In other words, he doesn't always have to line up next to the tackle. You split these tight ends out now and put them in space where they can just run overs and the mesh routes where he's coming across where the quarterback has a big target too. That's a big old target in the red zone when it swings down and there's no vertical room for you. You want to throw it in the windows. I was watching the hot shots here, and they had the big tight end, and he just kind of ran a vertical in the window. He just threw it up by the goalpost. The guy jumps up and catches it. And that's what they bring. They open up windows for the quarterback in tight areas. They're big like that.
What'd you think about the Hot Shots? And was it weird being over at the stadium and it had Hot Shots logos all over the place?
No, I enjoyed it. Knew the folks on both teams. My old defensive coordinator was a defensive coordinator for the Utah team, and I knew both head coaches, and obviously I knew a lot of people in charge, and so it's a needed deal. This league is needed for development. When you think about coaches, officials, rules, players, there's no league for a player when he gets cut from the NFL to go to. Our farm system is college football. But where do they go from there? When they get cut, they go home. They waste a whole year. In basketball, there's a league. Baseball, there's a league. In the National Football, there's no league. And I think as long as fans understand that, it'll be okay. This league is not trying to compete with the National Football League. It can't. It's not the same thing. But to give a guy an opportunity, I think is great in the fact they get to play. If they're not in the NFL camp, they get cut. There's a season for them to play to put their resume on tape again. We had a guy by the name of Brandon Moore when I was in New York. We drafted him late. He was a defensive tackle. And about the second week of camp, I told him, I said, Brandon, here's the deal. Now take this the right way now. I said, I'm going to send you to Europe. And Doug Marrone was the offensive line coach. And I'm sending you over there, and you're going to play guard. And he looked at me and said, Coach, basically you're cutting me. I said, no, I'm not cutting you. I'm just sending you somewhere where I think at the end, when you come back, you're going to be a better player. And so he goes and he plays in the league. He comes back the next year, comes to training camp. He's a guard, and I think he started for the Jets, 10, 11 years ago. So that's what this league's about for me, personally, and for coaches, young coaches, officials. For officials. They spotted the ball on 25. I know because I walked out there and set the ball on 25-yard line. Is that the new thing coming in the NFL? I don't know, but they're going to experiment with some things, I think, which fans can look at and go, okay, that's how they're doing it, and maybe you change. They went for 2 points. There's no, that's interesting. It's kind of interesting. All of a sudden, the game was 8-8. That's interesting, 8-8, right? So you start thinking of the strategy as the end goes, now it's 8-8. So I think all those things bode well for the National Football League.
I know replacing N'Keal Harry can be a daunting task. Brandon Ayuk in the bowl game, I thought had a little coming out party. What do you see from him in the spring to play that role?
Well, I think you make a great point. He got a lot of confidence in that game, and I think Porter as well. So we've got some guys that vertically can run. Now it's just a matter of them obviously doing it in games, and I think Brandon realizes that. Brandon's a guy that has aspirations to play on Sunday, and so he understands he's in an offense now that the number one receiver just left. He was number one. He left, and who's gonna fill that spot? It's wide open. I don't care who feels it, just somebody go feel it, right? And so let them compete and see what happens.
Chase was back out there today, Early was out, was there
No, he's fine. He's fine. They're all good. It was good to see Chase back. He went through a tough stint there. Good to see him back. I had a good talk with him. Danny went to the services, our defensive coordinator, so he's happy to be back too. This is his second family, so it's important.
Sorry to switch tracks
You
from
okay?
football. I'm working on a story right now. I got to interview Harrison Dillard and Herb Douglas yesterday, and Olympians from London '48. And we talked about like the evolution of the African American athlete. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you still see as challenges for African American athletes, and where do you hope to go? Like with athletes speaking now.
Well, I think the challenge for us all is, at this point in time, what I believe, and I grew up in the 60s, why are we still having this conversation? We're just athletes. We're all athletes. See, that's what's great about athletics. When you're an athlete, you don't get caught up in all that silliness of, oh, by the way, he wears his hair this way. He's this religion. He grew up with a picket fence. He didn't grow up with a picket fence. He is a Republican. He's a Democrat. He's a Catholic. He's a Baptist. It doesn't matter. And I think as a person of color, when you grow up in the 60s, outside of the bubble of sports, that's more talked about than inside the bubble. Because it's not talked about. You're a teammate. And I think we make a big deal out of it, and rightly so, because without conversation, you have no progress. And I think the thing about sports, it allows you to do that. And you may not always agree, but you respect each other. Because you're working alongside these people every day. And it's like, hey, we're all trying to do the same thing, because if we don't come together as a team, we got no shot. It doesn't matter. And so I've always been a guy that's been very fortunate living in this bubble. But I understand outside the bubble, because at times you live outside the bubble and you got to deal with certain things. I know I had to growing up in the 60s. I got bused from the local high school to another high school. I got flat bused and they put me on a bus. And I get all that. And it's sad to say that sometimes I look at America and go, why are we still talking about this stuff? I can remember in Philadelphia as a rookie, and you women will appreciate this. The first time they let a female reporter actually in the locker room. I remember like it was yesterday. And the players were like, what? And I'm like, it's okay. She's just trying to do her job. But that's just me. I just think that way. It's never like, oh, I was like, no. And so, I think you look at women in today's world, and a woman official out there. I carried the ball. I wasn't like struck like, oh, like she's the official. I told her, don't throw a lot of flags, you're on TV today. That's all they care about, right? I mean, so I just think that, that's the world I live in. And you hear all this stuff, and I see young people, it's kind of like the world kind of repeats itself. You hear all this strife, and why are we still talking about that stuff? What are we doing here? We're going backwards. We should be going forward. So I'm always a forward thinker. I don't look through the rearview mirror a whole lot anymore. I don't have time for that. Because if you do that, then it's the blame game. Have a solution. Be a problem solver. That's what I always say. Just let's figure out some answers. Let's don't dwell on the past. The past tells us what's good and what wasn't good. Well, let's don't go back there. Let's continue to progress. So that's kind of me. That's where I'm at with all this stuff. It's important. You two women are in here, and that's great. It doesn't bother me. It's great. I mean, I don't look at you any different. You're gonna ask the same question the man asks. I don't care. I'm gonna give you an answer. Doesn't matter to me. It's just you're trying to do your job, and you do your job well, and that's all that matters.